I started to think to myself, man, if I'm coming across this issue, I bet you there's people that I'm responsible for, people in my office that this is a negative, and then it impacts their commissions and their bonuses and how much money they make on a weekly basis. Yes, sometimes people share, some challenging things for them, but at the end of the day, don't be somebody else's punching bag. They're so eager to respond. They're so eager to tell people about something they just said. They don't let them finish their entire thought. All right, happy Friday. Good to see everyone. I know we have some people in the audience today watching live our recording. So wanted to say happy Friday. Welcome to the Klear Channel. For those of you that may or may not know this, we launched this channel 3 years ago, right coming out of COVID. And today we have over 100 videos on the Klear Channel, everything around sales, around leadership, entrepreneurship. So if you have not subscribed to the Klear Channel, Klear channel, please go to YouTube and please subscribe. So today I'm going to jump right in. Today I'm going to talk about how to be a master in the arena of sales. Why sales? What is it about sales that we need? And I'll tell you, in the world of business, in my opinion, one of the most important skills you can learn is sales. The ability to communicate, the ability to influence, the ability to have someone go through a buying behavior, and the fundamentals of business. Every CEO on the planet, every president, everyone in a leadership role, they're doing sales every single day. So super, super important to learn sales, to master sales. And listen, even in life as a parent, I'm selling my kids every day to brush their teeth. I'm telling them that to do the dishes this morning. There's lots of things as a parent that you use sales for. So I'm going to talk about three tips on how to be a master in sales. So I'm going to knock them out. Number one, do your homework. Do your homework. What is the main product you sell? Do you know it inside and out? Do you know the details? There's some customers that need the details. There's some customers that do not need the details. But do you know your product? Do you know the features? Do you know the benefits? And again, there's an old saying that features tell, benefits sell. So I'll go through an example of that. This iPhone as an example that a lot of people have. What's the feature of having the emails coming, or what's the benefit of having the emails coming to the iPhone? Well, the benefit is when I'm on the road, I can actually, connect with my business. I can send messages. I can communicate with people. So it adds an ability to be mobile as I'm running a company, right? The feature is the email comes through. The benefit is how it impacts my life, how it makes my life better. Very big difference. But understanding how that works and the feature of a product and then the benefit of it will help you be great. But you got to do your homework. Who are your competitors? Do you look at your competitors on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis? Do you know the pricing of your competitors? Do you have people telling you things that they use with a competitor, and you're guessing whether or not they're telling you the truth? So I'll tell you a story. I started my sales career going business to business, working with an office supply company called Quill. They're owned by Staples, and they're the warehouse side of Staples. So I would walk into a business, I'd introduce myself to the office manager, to a business owner, and then I would sit down and do a side-by-side comparison of their products that they were using and then how Quill could benefit their company by giving them cheaper prices, overnight delivery, depends on the product. And I remember one time a customer says to me, "Oh, well, what's your price of your paper?" And I said, "It's $23.90. So I knew it. It was our number one product we sold, so I knew the paper pricing off the top of my head. And she said, "Oh, I get mine a little bit cheaper from Office Max." And I said, "Really? Not the last time I checked, it was actually $26.90." And over time, obviously, as you still got to run out and get it sometimes. The delivery, you got to tack on $3 or $4 a box because of delivery. Because I knew my stuff. And she goes, "No, it's actually $21.90." I have this little flyer here that I get, every Sunday in the newspaper, and I can get my paper cheaper. And I remember looking at her going, oh, touche. You know your stuff. So I walked out of that business with my tail between my legs, and I said to myself, how the does that person know my business better than I do? So I got really pissed off and frustrated. And so I turned around and I realized that if I'm going to be great and I'm going to be the number one rep in the nation on the campaign I'm working on, because I took a lot of pride in being the best, I need to know when things change. So then every Sunday from that day forward, I got a newspaper. Some of you guys don't even know what that is probably. But I got a newspaper with all the flyers of all the competitors, because every Sunday they'd have special promotions and special deals. And I would look at the newspaper and I would find the Office Max flyer. And sure enough, that Sunday that came up, I got the newspaper, I got the flyer, and I found the spot that it says the deal for Office Max paper. And sure enough, she was right. It was $21.90, the little promotion they had. And then I read the flyer and I said, wait a second, it's $21.90, but right below it, it says there's a limit to 3 boxes. Huh. So I realized that, okay, maybe the smaller accounts I dealt with that only got a box or two a month, then yeah, maybe 21 to 23, whatever, saving a couple bucks here and there, they could get a better deal. Now they'd also have to spend money driving to the location. They'd have to pick it up. Some people that order office supplies don't have the strength to carry the box from the thing to the car to the office, etc. And so there's a physical part to it, and I had to, lean on that sometimes. Is the $2 worth the drive? Is the $2 worth picking up the 25-pound box of paper, or we can, deliver it to you free overnight delivery kind of stuff? And so some people, I got around that objection by that. But then the bigger accounts I would get in front of that ordered 6, 8, 10 boxes of paper, they'd say the same thing. Oh, I get it through Office Max. I got a flyer that says I can get it for $21.90. So obviously that's gonna be a lot. And I said, actually, did you see the fine print? And they would say, no. I'm like, well, pull it out real quick. Look at the fine print. I saw it too. They're like, oh, okay, hold on a second. And they pull it out and they'd say, yeah, the fine print says limit to 3 boxes. So let's do the math. You get 10 boxes of paper, you get 3 for this price, you get ours at 21 whatever. If you do the total cost of it, because you only get 3 for that price, plus the $28 it normally costs, you're actually saving money with us by getting all the boxes of paper at our discounted price. And you don't have to go out and pick it up. And so I tell you that story because I think what the best people do in any craft they have, in any industry they're in, especially in the industry of sales, is they do their homework. They take the time to get around, to figure out who their competitors are, to figure out the nuances of what makes their company special, their product, their presentation special, and they get good at that. And now the other piece that I did, just so you know, because at that time of my career, I was in a leadership role where I was starting to take responsibility for other people. I started to think to myself, man, if I'm coming across this issue, I bet you there's people that I'm responsible for, people in my office that this is a negative, and then it impacts their commissions and their bonuses and how much money they make on a weekly basis. So then every Monday from, again, as I started looking at the paper and this flyer, I would bring in the flyer and I would run a training for 5 minutes on some of the unique little things that changed week over week. And sure enough, the team would go out into the stores and go out and visit clients. And instead of that being a negative and why somebody didn't sign up and why they didn't make the sale, they started turning it into why they did make the sale. And I gained a lot of respect internally in my company because I took the initiative to do my homework. So number one is do your homework. And at the end of the day, you got to care about what you do. If you don't, then this stuff probably won't matter anyways. So number one is you got to do your homework. Number two, you have to master the skill of active listening. Active listening. So listening, there's some people listen to kind of hear people and what they're saying. Other people listen and look at the whole picture and people's body language, and they listen to connect. These are very, very different things when it comes to sales. Because what I've learned that body language is probably more important than what people are actually saying in a conversation. And this again is not just in sales, this is in relationships, this is in coaching and consulting people. This is in life and personal relationships outside of work. But body language is huge, huge. Another thing is tonality. When people are saying things, what type of tone are they using? You know, if somebody says, I don't like you, they're saying it really nice. Or they say, I don't like you. It's a very different tone. That's a very different intensity. So there's obviously different reads of that person and how to respond, right? So, but social cues, reading people's body language, actually listening to what they're saying, and then being in a place that you are so strong inside, that you are present inside, that you can turn around and then summarize what they're telling you, is proving to that human that you're really listening to them. So the art of active listening is where you can then give them 2 or 3 points of what they just told you as a summary, and then they walk away going, oh my God, they were really listening to me. And when you do that in a sales capacity, or you do it in a coaching or leadership capacity, that person does 2 things. They walk away, one, knowing that you're really in tune to what they're saying and you're really connected to them. And then the second thing they walk away understanding, in my opinion, is that that it's more about the connection than it is about the sale, or it is about something that's going on, or just to give someone advice. And when people feel that genuine connection, especially in sales, they like you more. And an old saying in sales that most people know that are really good at it is people buy you. They'll buy you long before they buy a product or service that you're representing. And so I'll tell you some statistics that I found as I was preparing this today. It says people spend between 70 and 80% of their day engaged in some type of communication, and 55% of their time is listening. Research suggests that the average person hears between 20 and 30,000 words during the course of a 24-hour period. 20 to 30,000 words in a 24-hour period. The average number of words you're able to listen to in a minute is about 450. And most people usually only remember 17 to 25% of the things they listen to. So knowing those statistics, majority of what people are listening to, they're not really listening to. So that's why active listening can be so powerful. You're able to turn around, and again, as people go through their day at work, with relationships, with kids, with all the things that are on their mind, if you are a part of that 70% where people are actually really listening, right, and they're really helping people solve problems and come up with solutions, then you're going to be different. And you're also going to be treated differently. And you're also going to be in a position where you're going to make more money than other people if you're in a sales capacity. And the other thing that I thought was interesting when I was doing the research for active listening today is that, and, thinking about the world of people, and, as you listen, if you're somebody that people lean on a little bit as a coach or a leader or whatever, and in your family, you're the one that feels the, in my opinion, like I feel the responsibility of being different and leading at a high level in my family. That means that people are going to come to you and tell you things. They're going to complain sometimes. They're going to be nagging. And another interesting thing I found, it says listening to nagging or complaining for 30 minutes or more can cause damage to part of your brain that actually handles problem-solving skills. So I'm going to say that again, because I think that's an important one. If you're in a role where people come to you and do a lot of this complaining or nagging, if you do it for 30 minutes or more, it actually can cause damage to a part of your brain that handles problem-solving skills. So I share that with everybody because I think it's important to know, Yes, we want to make a difference. Yes, we want to make an impact on people. Yes, sometimes people share, some challenging things for them. But at the end of the day, don't be somebody else's punching bag. Don't do it. It's just not only affecting your brain, apparently, which I did not know until yesterday, but it's affecting, the things that you want to accomplish. All right. So if you want to be great at active listening, and these are some things you can do starting today and moving forward to be great at active listening. So if somebody's speaking to you, to actually be face to face, this is huge. When they're talking to you, maintain eye contact. Don't be distracted. Look right at them. Be listening with full intention, with eyes and ears and everything. And, be attentive. Be relaxed, right? Sometimes if you need to, take notes, right? Write things down. That can be really important to people. But also in general, keep an open mind, open body language. Really, really important to not interrupt someone when they're talking. That's a huge skill of active listening. So a mistake people make is they're listening to people. They actually interrupt them. They're so eager to respond. They're so eager to tell people about something they just said. They don't let them finish their entire thought. And again, it's called competitive listening more than active listening. And also another thing is people are talking, body language about, nodding the head. Okay. Yeah. I hear what you're saying. Okay. Right. And so doing little things like that is just simply saying that I'm listening to you. I'm in tune with you. And I'm here to support you. But if you can master active listening, not just in sales, but in general, you're going to have a better day to day. So I wanted to share with you guys with active listening, huge when it comes to sales for sure. But number 2 is active listening. And then number 3 is being confident with closing and keeping the sale closed. So being a master at closing sales and just being great in sales is, again, picking up on closing signals. Again, sometimes they're verbal, sometimes they're nonverbal. And closing signals, depending on the business that you're in, depending on the industry and can be very, very different, especially based on some products. But there is some general things that are universal. So somebody talking about the product or service that you're working with as if they own it. So future ownership talk is a closing signal. So I'll give an example in what we do. We sell wireless and cell phones and internet plans and things in my organization. Well, if somebody's talking about, well, in the internet, for the installation process is ABC, how does that work? Or is it professional install? Oh, and the cell phone, how does it work when the cell phone gets delivered? Like, how do I transfer my data from my old phone to my new phone? Closing signal. Any type of questions about the future? Hey, well, hold on a second. Is the future billing or the future? How do I turn in? Do I have to trade in my phones? Some question about what's happening next or future questions? Huge closing signal. Questions about the process. Hey, so I don't know if I can do this today because I don't have all the devices here with me in the store as I'm looking to update. That's the best part about it. Nothing changes today, but that's a future question about the process and how they kind of get things set up. In my opinion, objections are closing signals. Any type of objection about the product or service, it's a closing signal. Because if they weren't interested, they wouldn't be standing there giving you an objection. They would have left by now. So if they're still engaged, they're still talking, to me, that's a closing signal. And so I just got to figure out where the pain point is. I got to figure out the solution for whatever issue they're having. And then I can help them move things along. But again, a closing signal to me is someone who is actively engaged. You're still talking to me. That is a closing signal in my eyes, because the body language has not removed them to leave the presentation or leave the sales process. Now, when it comes to closing, there's a couple different types of closing. So I'm going to grab a book here. I have a few copies in my office, but this is the book 20 some years ago that I read cover to cover, and I took notes on. And again, I came back in and I taught the office some of the things that I learned. But it goes through, it's like the anatomy of a close, closing signals, tactics and strategies of being a champion closer, how to do, closing lines. So part one is a close by any name and keeping the sale close. So I read this book and it taught me some of these things I'm going over with you. And, one of the ways to close is something called a 2-option close. And in the process, again, if you do your homework and you want to be a master in sales, whatever organization you're in, there's different steps into getting to the final close where the deal is done. Sometimes it's like a first part of the process. Then there's a middle part. Then there's a third part. And what we do, that's kind of how it works. There's an initial pitch. There's, moving someone to getting a credit check where we're trying to figure out if they qualify for what we're offering. And then from there, the second close is actually getting the deal done, right? So there's kind of two parts to it, right? And so when you work with a 2-option close, it's eliminating the option of no. So at one part of our sales process, we have to, get a debit or credit card to pay for some of the services, the taxes in particular, to get the phones shipped out. And so we say, hey, is it debit or credit? We're simply offering two different things, two different options of what's next. We're not saying, do you want to do this or not? And if you do want to do this, we need to get a credit card. No, we're saying, hey, debit or credit. So we're eliminating the option of no. So they say debit. Okay, great. If they say credit, we say, okay, great. But it's a 2-option close because we're leaning them into the next step. The second one that I used back in the day is called the information close. And so if I'm on the fence and I'm kind of feeling like I'm not sure if they're going to go for it or not go for it, etc., then I lean into getting information. So then I say something that's very subtle, that's very easy to get information about, right? So if I'm going through a process and I, as an example, there's a part of our process, we got to port numbers or whatever. I say, hey, I go through a good news, bad news situation and we have some fun with it. And then I lean and I say, we just want to make sure you want to keep your phone numbers. You want to keep your numbers, right? 9 times out of 10, and probably 99% of the time, people say, yes, I want to keep my numbers. I know you want to keep your numbers. And then if I'm still a little bit unsure that we're moving forward and that they're aware that I'm moving the sale forward, I say, hey, what's your phone number again? It's 248. And I pause. And then they tell me 346-2475. But by me gaining that information, they're telling me the information, I'm plugging it into the system, I'm moving the sale forward, and subconsciously they know I'm closing the sale. Back in the day when some of the deals we did, we didn't have tablets. If you can imagine a world without cell phones and without tablets and doing a sales process. Yes, I was a part of that world. Actually, I'm sorry, I did have a cell phone. It was like a Nokia block phone. It's like one of those ones, like a Zach Morris phone. I had one. But we didn't have, the tablets where you place orders and systems set up. We actually used things called paper. And so I would take a pen and a pencil. Some of you guys know what that is. And I would take that pen and I would go, oh, so sir, how do you spell your name? Michael, M-I, and I would stop and I would look at him and he'd say C-H-A-E-L or whatever. And I'm like, okay, great. And your last name is Smith, S-M-I-T-H. Oh, okay, cool. But I already knew his name. I've been talking to Michael for 30 minutes. But again, I'm gaining information. I'm walking them through the next step. That's called the information close. The third one is the future talk close. And I would say something like, okay, cool. So we're doing the cell phone deal. And say, hey, so let me ask you this. When you get your cell phone, what's the first thing you're going to do with it? Are you going to put a fancy like screensaver on it? And then they're going to say, you know what? I haven't thought about that. I don't know what I'm going to do when I get my new cell phone. but they're thinking about using the product and how it's going to benefit their life, right? Again, future talk close. Now, last but not least, the other close is, as I'm doing these things, the key with closing is, again, moving the sale forward. But if there's no impulse and there's no real close somewhere in the process and they don't know what they're doing, then at the end, they're gonna be like, hold on a second, what? I didn't know I was doing this, right? So you got to be cautious of how you're positioning these closing lines and things. But if you want to be a master at closing, you want to be a master of sales, I highly encourage you to grab this book. I mean, it's like $10 on Amazon. My personal income when I was young in my career literally grew 30 to 40% because I took the time to read that book. And then I obviously came into the company I was in and I learned all the sales tips that they were teaching me. So the combination of both of those definitely helped me be better in the sales arena. All right, so I'll tell you, the when it comes to sales and sales closing, the last thing I'd like to share with you is learning how one of the keys to closing multiple sales in a day. If you're in an industry and you're in a position where, hey, listen, it's a one sale close and you close one deal and you make 4 or 5 grand and it takes 30 days to close. I remember, the lady that sold me my house, this poor, I felt bad in a way. My wife and I, we were particular. We literally saw something like 60 homes in the real estate here in Michigan, and we were looking for a house. And then when we found our house, great, and I'm sure she made a pretty sizable commission on it just based on the cost and everything else. But she definitely worked for that one, to say the least. But if you're in an industry where you can have multiple sales in a day and multiple yeses in a day, the key is, and I'll just leave you with this, the last note of today, the key is simply not being satisfied. Well, if you have a sale and you get it done, fantastic, then move it to the next one. And in your heart saying, you know what, I'm still at 0. I still haven't hit my goal. My goal is 3, is 5, is whatever, and putting that one behind you and moving forward. Complacency in the world of business is probably one of the most difficult things to be conscious of and to not fall into. One of the scariest things in the world is to think about average. Most people don't set high goals because they're going to miss. The crazy thing is most people set mediocre goals and they hit. So I'd encourage you in the world of sales, if you want to be great at it, to pay attention to the things I went over today. Number 1, do your homework. Number 2, do your best to master that active listening. That's something you have to work on in your life. I'm still working on it as a dad and as a coach and a business owner. And then last but not least, obviously, learn the tips and the tricks and just the sales closing lines and little things there. But the neat thing about the world is we got, things like this YouTube channel. There's obviously audiobooks. There's things that you can do to improve your skills and increase your income. So happy Friday. Thanks for joining us today on the Klear Channel. We'll see you guys next week. We got a pretty awesome entrepreneur that we're bringing on next week, a young lady who's been a self-made millionaire, has run companies all over the world, ran companies in South Florida, ran a business in London. But she's coming on next Friday. Excited to introduce you to her. As a good friend of mine. But you guys have a great week, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for jumping on.